Hello, this is Mr. Frank, and welcome to I Can Interpret Data and Create a Scatter Plot. Let's get into it. Here's where we are in the unit, and we're going to start with a little vocabulary that we're going to cover today. Scatter plot, correlation, three types of them. Positive correlation, negative correlation, and no correlation, and a trend line. You'll see these words, and we'll start covering them now. Ooh, you think that's a scatter plot? It looks like a scatter plot. Does your room look like that? I hope not. But that is not a scatter plot. A scatter plot is a graph with points plotted to show a possible relationship between two sets of data, and a correlation is a relationship in the data. So let's see what that means. Here's a graph of a scatter plot. We see sales and we see temperature. As the temperature gets higher, this is in Celsius, degrees Celsius, sales go up. So that might be for, I don't know, suntan lotion or bathing suits, right? Probably not for something like winter boots, right? You'd think sales would go down as temperature went up for winter boots. But this might be suntan lotion. And this is what a scatter plot looks like. You plot the dots, the coordinate pairs of each of the data points in your data set. So this would say when the temperature was almost 12 degrees, the store did almost $200 worth of sales. When the temperature was just over 14 degrees Celsius, the temperature did a little over $200 of sales. So that's how you would read that. And we'll talk about correlation. A correlation is when the x and y coordinates both increase at the same time. So it means they're both going up and that they're related. Here's a nice scatter plot. You can see child's height and a child's weight. And as they're taller, children tend to weigh more. Not always. But in general, as someone is taller, they tend to weigh more. And you can see that in general, this data set, as height goes up, weight goes up. Right? It doesn't mean that it has to form an exact line, but generally, as height goes up, weight goes up, that would mean it's a positive correlation. So let's take a look at a negative correlation. That's when one coordinate goes up, the other one is decreasing. So as one goes up, the other's going down. The scatter plot will be more like a downhill slope, down and to the right. And let's check this out. Price of a motorcycle versus how old it is. So a new motorcycle might be about $10,000, $9,500 there. If I'm getting a motorcycle that's more than 9 years old, I might be paying $2,000. Probably still a nice motorcycle for $2,000. But you can see that as a motorcycle ages, generally the cost of that motorcycle is going to go down. That means there's a negative correlation. And check this out. If I drew a line here that sort of fit this data set, that line would have a negative slope. And that's how we also think about it, as having a negative correlation. You can think of the slope of the line that fits the data set to determine whether it's a negative or positive correlation. And then there's no correlation. So check out this. I plotted math test scores versus shoe size, and you can see there is no relationship in the data. It does not matter what your shoe size is to determine how well you do on a math test. So that would be no correlation. So a trend line is a line on a graph that shows the general direction of the points that seem to be heading. So a trend line doesn't have to hit every dot. You're not connecting the dots. You're just trying to put a line in there that makes sense of all of the data points that you've plotted. So you can draw a trend line, and the tighter the trend line is to all the dots, the stronger the correlation is going to be, and the easier it is to draw that line. You can just draw that line by eyeing it, and you tend to want to have the same number of data points, about the same, above and below the line. And we'll take a look at some of these. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at A here. All these dots are spread out. I can't really draw a line that represents the pattern of all of these points because they're all over the place. This would be no correlation. So before I continue, I want you to pause here and tell me which two graphs have a linear trend or a positive or a negative correlation. All right, so pause here. Answer the question and come on back. All right, let's see how you did. You should have said that C was one of the answers. And here's the line where you can draw a line through some of the points. They don't actually have to go through the points, but clearly the line represents all of those data points. And then there's also E. I can draw a line that clearly represents all of those data points. And you can see I've got 1, 2, 3 points above here, and 1, 2, 3, 4 below. That's pretty good. This one I've got kind of 3.5 below and 4 above. So it's okay if it hits the dots. You're not playing connect the dots. You just want to have a line that represents the data. And this one over here, C, is a negative correlation because my line of best fit has a negative slope. And here, E, it's a positive correlation because my line of best fit has a positive slope. B and D, there's no correlation in that data. So now let's take a look at creating a trend line. I'm giving you a data set here. So we've got shoe size and we've got mass or weight. Weight and mass, you can think about those similarly. So I'm going to plot each point. So 5 and 70, if I plotted that, I'm going to plot the data. 5 and 70 would go right here. 5 is the shoe size, 70 is the weight. And I'm just going to move down. Now I'm going to plot 12 and 34, so that goes right there. I'm sorry, 134, I said that wrong. And now we've got 7 and 77. And I'm going to continue plotting each data point. Think of size as the x-coordinate and mass as the y-coordinate. And you know what, just to save time, I'm going to jump to the end, because I know you know how to plot some points. So I just jumped to the end and plotted the last one, 8 and 10. Shoe size 8, weight of 8 and 100 rather. And now, so we plotted the data. The next thing that we want to do is draw a trend line. It's also called a line of best fit. So let's look at this data. It's certainly going up and to the right, and here's how I would draw the line. All right, that looks pretty good. Oh, we got some bells. All right. Thanks for waiting for those bells. We got 4 dots, maybe 4.5 above, and we got 4 below, and it looks like it represents the data, so that's pretty good. So now we can use this line, I'm just going to draw it again, to make a prediction. So let's say I wanted to predict if someone has a 10.5 shoe size right here, how much do you think they weigh? So I can go 10.5 up to the line, and then I can move to the left to the other axes to see how much they weigh. And I would guess that they'd weigh 118 pounds. It's a prediction. It might not be 100% right, but it's a pretty good prediction with this data set. Now, let's say I wanted to guess if somebody weighed 73 pounds, what's their shoe size going to be? So see if you could figure that out. So let's pause now for Edpuzzle, and then come on back. All right, welcome back. So here we've got that 73 pounds. What do you think their shoe size is going to be? Well, here's how I drew the line. I drew it down here, and I think their shoe size is going to be 6. So I hope you got that answer too. Hopefully you did. If not, maybe go back and look at what I did with the 118 and the 10.5, size 10.5. But you just move to the line and then come on down, in this case, to see what the shoe size is going to be. Now it's your turn to make a scatter plot. So here's what I want you to do. Take a screenshot of this screen, import it into Notability or some other program that you use, or you can just use good old-fashioned graph paper and recreate this grid here. All right, either way. And I want you to create a scatter plot using all of these points. The hours of sunshine will be your X variable. The visitors will be your Y variable. And this is museum visits. I know I like to go to a museum, but I also like to go to a museum on a cloudy day, because if it's a nice sunny day, I'm probably going to want to do something outside. So I want you to plot all the points, draw a line of best fit, and then in Edpuzzle you'll answer, does the data have a positive, negative, or no correlation? So take the screenshot now. You're expected to bring this back to class tomorrow and show your teacher your work. All right, so pause now and get to work. All right, welcome back. So you should have your screenshot in Notability or another program. You should have your scatter plot drawn. You should have your line of best fit, and you've already answered the question about the correlation. So now, please in Edpuzzle answer what you learned or were reminded of and questions that you have. So pause to do that. All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in school.